Yeah. 21-point improvement. Good afternoon, Ben, Nathan, and the Demon slash podcast team.
This is
Words
my man
cannot.
David, by the way. I really miss David. He was in the Demon Live classes like right at the very beginning of COVID. I feel like I
Oh,
was
yeah.
hanging out with David during the beginning of COVID,
Hmm.
and he's gone now from the classes. He graduated. Lucky for him, sad for me. But anyway, this is an email from David.
Cool. David writes, words cannot quite express my gratitude towards you all, but I will try. Exclamation point. I decided to take the plunge towards applying to law school about a year ago and found the podcast and the Demon in January. I'm active duty in the Marine Corps, so I was really drawn to the flexibility the Demon offered as I could study before and after work. My diagnostic test came in at a 151, and my initial hope was to get into the 160s. Progress wasn't always consistent, but over time it was linear and came in chunks. By the time August rolled around, I hit 170 a few times and was super hopeful. I crashed and burned in August and October as I received a 161 and a 164,
Hmm.
respectively. My average was a 168 at the time on his practice tests. After talking to Ben and Nathan in class and in office hours, I was confident I could get it done in November. 172 exclamation point. I couldn't believe it. Your advice on the exam being learnable and a measure of how hard I was willing to work kept me focused during my 11 months of studying. By November, I had taken every test from 50 to 89, some more than once, and I drilled almost all of the questions from tests 1 to 49. When I started studying, I only got 5 questions right on logic games, and I am confident that my 172 came with a perfect games section. I have high hopes on school choices that would not even be within reach without your help, guidance, and teaching. Thank you, Ben, Nathan, A. Dot, and all of the tutors for your time and effort. You are truly changing the courses of people's lives for the better. Praise the demon. Feel free to use my name on the show, blah, blah, blah. Um, Thanks, David. I asked Annalisa to add this to the agenda because he took it 3 times. His practice test scores were higher than his August and October LSATs, a 161 and a 164. But I'm worried. I'm concerned about all those people who get a 161, then they get a 164, even though their practice tests are higher. And they just say, okay, I can't do this on the official test. I'm done. And if David had done that, he wouldn't be a 172 applicant, which is light years away from a 164 applicant. Different, different league.
Yeah, I'm very proud of David for his work ethic. I mean, he's praising us, thanking us. Like, okay, you're welcome,
Yeah.
but you're the one that did the all the work. I mean, all we do is help you, answer your questions. That's it. So David just was really grinding it out. I mean, he did sounds like every LSAT question that exists. Hopefully, not every listener ends up having to do as much work as David did. But if it's necessary, you should be willing to do that. I mean,
Well,
David's career is is now launching on a completely different trajectory. Like
yeah.
164 was going to be good for David. 172 is going to be unreal for David. It's the difference between like getting into Hastings and getting into Berkeley or Stanford. It's
Yeah.
just like I like the launch. It's like the launch angle is just
Yeah.
different. You're
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, well, you could still reach outer space with a lower launch angle, or like a lower launch velocity, whatever. I don't
Yeah.
not really understand physics, obviously, but like the metaphor I think is apt. If you're trying to make it to Mars, there's a certain starting position, starting velocity that you need to have.
Yeah.
And David took the 9 months and the multiple attempts at the LSAT. You know, that's awesome.
I mean, he's going to have to continue the work, right? And do well in
Oh,
law school and all that stuff. But the
oh,
thing is,
the work, the work has barely just begun. I mean, it's like
yeah.
you do that work so that you can be eligible to do much harder work. David will be, if David ends up at Stanford, one of my Stanford law students recently told me, and I think that this was the one that was a 4.0 from Harvard.
Hmm.
She had a 4.0 from Harvard and a 180 on the LSAT. Okay.
Wow.
She went to Stanford Law School. And she told me, I never knew what hard work was until I started Stanford Law School. Okay. So, and I'm sure she'll say that again when she gets into actual legal practice, right? You're like trying to make it to the fucking big leagues here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, David busted his ass to get himself eligible for the next phase of like, but hey, that's where the Supreme Court justices come from. Like Ruth
Yep.
Bader Ginsburg did not get there by being brilliant, even though she was. She got there by never sleeping.
Yeah. And, uh, you know, some people will look at this and say, wow, this is a lot of hard work, especially after taking the test twice officially, right? You're like ready to throw in the towel. But when David looks back on this now, and especially 5 years from now, it's going to feel like a drop in the bucket. Another 6 months, that's nothing. It's nothing. And but he's already immediately benefiting from it financially. I mean,
But
he hasn't
Ben,
got the offers yet. He will, though.
but I really want to start law school this year, Ben. The deadline for
That
applications is not
conversation,
until March 31st. And I talked to the admissions office and they said I could take the February LSAT and then apply.
and
And
there's
I could,
another school that said they could take April. So, I mean, February is like so much better than
and I
April.
really want to start law school this year. So yeah, I understand everything that you're saying, Ben, but I think I'm not, I'm just going to apply this year and see what happens.
See what happens. Yeah, you'll get in and pay full price, or you'll, I don't know. It's just what it is. But
We always get in trouble for saying this, but you're better off getting the very best LSAT score you can and applying at the beginning of the cycle. Your odds of making it to Mars, or your odds of making it to the big leagues, whichever metaphor you prefer, are vastly increased with the very best LSAT score you can get, no matter how long it takes, and applying at the beginning of the cycle, not the fucking deadline. And everybody's going to be able to come up with an example of someone who, bucked those odds and got into Stanford at the deadline, or, got into Harvard with a mediocre LSAT score. Sure, you can come up with examples of those. But for every one of those examples, there's 100 who didn't make it. There's 100 who applied late with a shitty LSAT score and went to a mediocre law school and just did not achieve Mars orbit. So,
I would say, and this is not our fault too. This is something I think it's safe to say is unique to the LSAT and the law school application process. If you're applying to business school or medical school, yeah, you have to take tests for those applications, but they're not given as much weight. I don't think. More reasonably so, they look at your long-term work ethic, which is reflected in your GPA.
Well, and your
But
actual work experience, right? Like
yeah,
for competitive MBA programs, I mean, your work experience matters a lot. And for law school, yeah, it doesn't really matter that much what you did before you entered wizard school. It's like you weren't
yeah,
doing law, you were not practicing law before you went to law school. You certainly can be practicing business before you went to business school. So work experience matters a lot more for business school.
I mean, it just blows my mind, right? 4 years of work at undergrad gets you a GPA that's worth the same, or in some cases less, than a score that you work for 4 months to get. People shouldn't balk at working for a year at this process. It's worth more than your 4 years. Anyway,
Yeah, and whether that's fair or just or whatever, it's really not our concern. That is the game. The game is the LSAT is right now the most important component of your application, roughly on par with your undergraduate GPA, which
yep.
there's not much you can do to change your undergraduate GPA. Even if you're still in college, a junior or a senior, your GPA is not going to change significantly. But your LSAT score, as David's 9 months indicate, can change significantly.
Yeah, he went
You
from the
gotta,
middle of the pack to the top 1%.
yeah, 98th percentile
Oh, it's
probably these
172.
days.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but you're right. He went from right in the middle. 151 is like just right in the middle, and he went from that to 90. He beat 98 out of 100 other applicants.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of work ethic. Like what he did there is he demonstrated to the schools that he is willing to do whatever it takes. He's demonstrating, because it's a whole signaling thing here, right? I mean, what David did is he signaled to his future employer, right? This is like attenuated. They may not actually ask for his LSAT, although they might ask for his LSAT. But his future law firm, and even beyond that, like future clients, David demonstrated how hard he's willing to work. He demonstrated his proficiency in the English language. He demonstrated his logical thinking, and he demonstrated more than anything else how damn hard he is willing to work for the things that matter. And the schools are going to recognize that via the LSAT. The employers are going to recognize that via the school. The clients are going to recognize that via the employer. And it's like he's building himself this foundation for actually fucking doing something in the world.
Yeah.
Like at this point, whatever David wants to do, if
Yeah.
David wants to get rich, a 172 is an awful good start, because that's how you get to big law. Is you get a 172, you go to a great law school, you do a summer, and boom, you're in to a big time law firm making $180,000 straight out of law school. That's what a 172 will do for you.
Yep.
If Ben wants to make $60,000 a year and change the world, a 172 is how you do that, because he goes to whatever law school he wants. Maybe he decides to take a scholarship because he wants to work in public interest. But now he's given himself the foundation to go do whatever work it is that he wants to do, because he's willing to bust his ass up front. Anyway, can't say enough good things about David. I'm sure he's going to totally kill it.
Yeah.
Once again, the folks with military backgrounds have a work ethic that really does pay off quite frequently. Man, in my whole career of people who have improved 20 points or more, military people are seriously overweighted in that sample.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's in the fucking Marine Corps, man. He like there's people yelling at him to do push-ups at 4 a.m, and he just got used to it.
Yep.
And he's so used to it that he just does it himself, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what he did he did LSAT push-ups for 9 months. And okay,